everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on the Rule of Eight! Yes, with Bloomin' to you. And the Rule of Eight, if you don't know what that is my personal hypothesis, my theory that every series, every season of a show that is 11 to 13 episodes, the 8th episode is always either really good or a really important turning point in the story. It has not failed me yet. I think there's only been like 2 times I can count where I was like, oh, okay, that was a pretty standard episode. Everything else, it has always been a big one. And so I always look forward to the Rule of Eight, especially in series like this. And I'm telling you, episode 6 was Calm Before the Storm. Episode 7 was like, oh no, everything's fine. You're going to be okay. And then I'm like, that show is setting us up. It is setting us up. We got Sayaka backstory last episode, which was much needed. And I really, really, really appreciated it. But at this point, I'm like, something's gonna have to give. Something's going down because you have Sayaka, who's decided she's going to be the best friend that she can be for Nanami as long as she can, as long as that holds out. And then you have Nanami is just on cloud 9. She's having her cake and eating it too, where she's like, what? It's great. I can give all the loving to you that I want, and you's not gonna challenge it or try to love me back and make it awkward. It's all great. And you's fine with it, right? Whereas you is kind of like, I really want to know how to love her, but doesn't realize that that's not what Nanami wants. And meanwhile, you have Sayaka, who's like basically dedicated herself to being by Nanami's side, even when she gets nothing in return except, the praise, the platonic praise from her. So yeah, Nanami's doing pretty good for herself right now. I don't know if it's going to be sustainable, because Nanami's bound and determined that things aren't going to change. Everything's right as rain, and it's not going to evolve in any way, shape, or form. And we all know as human beings that relationships, they evolve. And whether it's advancing and furthering develop closer or breaking away and falling apart. So it's only a matter of time to see which it's gonna be. So I'm really excited, and I hope you all are too. I don't have any comments for this week, but that may change in weeks to come. So thank you all so much for commenting. And I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to thank you all so much for your support. I'm super appreciative of all the people that support on YouTube, all the people that support on Patreon, but our philanthropy tier, they get a shout out every week in my videos. So I want to thank them as well. So a special thanks to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Bryant Reed, to Be Happy, to Alex Cornejo, to Dana, to Danny Don Mai, to Destiny Marie, to Devorin, to Damage3245, to Danger Zone, to Ichu, to Eric, to Fisho, to Ghostly Turnip, to Ivan, to El Freya, to Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nameless Monster, Nicholas, No Nickname, Shimoyama, Sunspots, Trails, and Translucent Men. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I will be honest with y'all. My internet has been spotty the last couple days. I am in the rural boonies, so internet is always an issue, and I've had some equipment be faulty. So I've got a hotspot going right now. It is working right now, but if things seem a little spotty in the editing, I've probably had to stop the video, wait till it loads up, restart it, and then go from there. So I'm not going to watch ahead by any means. You're going to get my genuine reaction, but if the editing and the timing is just a wee bit off, that's why. Hashtag rule struggles. But hopefully that's not the case. Let's cross our fingers and hope that's true. But in any case, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right in and see what old Bloomin' to You has for us. I'm so excited. The Rule of Eight. Let's see how we do. So we're going to start episode 8 of Bloom Into You, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, there's Sayaka. Adorable outfit. Super cute. Oh. Oh! Was she waiting on her, though, or? Oh, so that wasn't who she was going to meet. Oh, okay, so. Oh, wow. That, like, tension. Mmm. Mmm. Yeah, what are you apologizing for? Oh, what? What do you mean? No. I don't think so. Oh. Shit. And there's Nanami. Wow, and she just ditched her. What a power move, girl! Yeah, feel guilty. Go ahead. Damn, Sayaka, girl! That was a boss move. Sorry, also, Nanami's outfit's adorable. Yeah. Aww. Hmm. You go pluck property that ain't yours, girl? Hmm. The good news is that you probably wouldn't care if she held her hand. You would not get jealous. She'd just be like, okay. But, interesting. Damn, Sayaka, girl. That was a boss move. Damn. To have girl has bigger balls than half the men at her school. Wow. All right. I feel like some people like Nanami though might just be touchy-feely and doesn't mean anything by it. She's just like, what? It's just holding your hand. What does it mean? But of course, Sayaka would take it a little bit more personally. As long as Nanami doesn't try to do anything with Sayaka, which would be like her kind of cheating on you, then I'm fine with that. Which I want to say that I don't think Nanami would do that, but Nanami's kind of scandalous sometimes. She pushes the boundaries of what she can do and get away with. So, and then of course all the hydrangeas are everywhere on the screen. Interesting. Is that one a hydrangea supposed to be Nanami and then the little other flower is you? Oh. Oh, the relay. Oh. Let's try it again. They're not in sync. Okay. Of course, that's going to be their problem. Of course. Ah! Well, it's not necessarily that. They're just on different wavelengths. Oh. Hmm. Ah. Right. They don't have any complaints. Oh. Nice. They're the only ones that think otherwise. Hello, teacher. In tracksuit. Is you gonna stick behind and wait on her? Ha! Wow! Suguru! Really? Sayaka. Yeah, I would take it more seriously. Well, okay. You don't think it's important to Nanami? So shouldn't you take it a little more seriously? Hmm. Ooh, yeah, between the two of them. There's probably like a deer or something outside. You gonna speak up, you? Yeah, there we go. Ooh. And there's like the crossroads where they could go. Is that like McDonald's? Really? Ha! Ah! You ain't some bougie girl, are you? Yes, you are bougie. You are the BB Zahara of this anime. Oh. Oh, with other classmates. I go to family restaurants. I do karaoke. She's like, well, when you have to say that you do it. Oh. Ah. She's like, that's being a little bit dramatic. She's like, oh, easygoing, huh? Surly, huh? Ah. She's like, at least you're blunt. Do you want more salty than sweet? Mm-hmm. Nice. You Donald's. Makes sense, but... Right. It could be fun, but it's also going to be a lot of work. Ooh. Because I'm going to support her, of course. That's not wrong. No, no. She's like, you're actually pretty astute about that. Uh-huh. Oh, ooh. That's not what I meant. Ooh. Ah. It's the same kind of. What else could she be? Ooh. That damn stoplight. Every BL and GL gotta have a stoplight in it. Well, yeah, of course. Yep. Ooh. Oh, you're telling her about this? Huh. Ooh. Oh man. Mmm. Yep. And of course, yep, changing the lights, yeah. It was nice of that car to stop mid-turn. Oh. Like gratitude. Because don't hydrangeas mean gratitude? Like you show your gratefulness to someone through them? Rained in! Well, we've been waiting for rain to happen, but that doesn't sound dramatic. Mm. Mm. Don't hate me and don't love anybody else. Mmm. The damn rain. Oh, he's like, you could stand under my umbrella, Ella, Ella, A. Sugaru's like, I'll stand under your umbrella, umbrella, Ella, A. Yes. All right. Sugaru, you might be barking up the wrong tree, though. Lucky for you. Man, Akari feels like she's getting taller, which is interesting. Or maybe she's always been that much taller. Aw. I love all of... Oh, the guy that she likes. Is she gonna send her on with him? Yeah. Go on, girl. Go on, girl! Yay! Go to it, girl. You ain't lost him yet. Yeah! Look at him being like, I'll hold the umbrella. She's like, well, I guess I'll run home and get wet. Or just join the band. Want me to come help you guys do sit-ups? Oh, loner umbrellas! Ah! Oh no! Oh, we don't want to bother. Oh, okay. I was like, I thought it was somebody else. Uh-huh. Oh, she's like, she's trying not to interrupt everybody's dates. But she didn't, did she? Interesting. Did she, or... And that's like this series in a nutshell of her hesitating to make that commitment. Well, girl, you'd be surprised. Oh, and she lied, saying she found somebody. Oh. I know, I would want it to like let up too. So that's what the reined in means. You gonna call her or not? Come on. How'd you know? Oh. A damn train every time. Oh. Of course, Yuu holds the umbrella. Or Nanami holds the umbrella, I mean. Aww. And it's even a red umbrella. What? The heaven officials' blessing allegations are not denied. Ah. Interesting. So there's a tie to connecting her with her sister. Oh. Oh, okay. Huh. Aw. Well, that might not be true, but for now, maybe. Mm. Oh. I mean, true. Ah! Girls, you're gonna break the umbrella. Well, no! You're gonna break it! Oh. Aww. 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 The giggles over their umbrellas. Yeah, no joke. Huh. Oh, and they're both holding it. Hmm. I love both of them holding it. Don't be jinxing it. Uh. Oh, is she gonna like kiss her with it on her head? Next to them damn hydrangeas. They are the younger sisters. Interesting. Hmm. Well. Oh. Mm. Yeah. Interesting. Oh, nice. Yeah, exactly. It's just making it up for that. Aww. Girl, what do you think she means by that? Do you think she wasn't going to care for you? Mm. Oh, girl, don't be like that. Okay, good. Oh, girl. Mmm. Mmm. Huh. Ooh, that was just like, I was like, oh, wait, are you really, girl? Hmm. Having our cake and eating it too. Maybe my circulation's just not great. Oh. I hate she denies herself that. Oh. Good grief. Oh. Hey! Look at this. Ah! Pick up the slack, boys. Ha! Aww. Good. Sometimes this streaming service will give you the English translations, and sometimes they will just give you they'll just stick to the Japanese romanji like these are, but that's fine. I think we've met everybody in this, right? I mean, the other two girls. And then yep, there's the teacher, and some of these characters I don't think we've met, but right, because Maki's there along with Suguru. Oh, I'm so glad the internet held out and we didn't have any worries. Yay! Yay! Good deal. Any preview? No, no preview. Y'all don't get to get the preview. None of y'all do. Well, fine. All right. All right. Not bad, rule of 8. Not bad. Not the most like, oh, plot twist, although the intro with Sayaka we'll talk about. I was like, girl, work. But man, definitely a turning point. I feel like transitioning us towards the final act. I'm sure next week, since it's 13 episodes, maybe it's rule of 9. There's been a couple series where instead of the 8th episode, it was the 9th episode. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe, I feel like Given and season 2 of Attack on Titan are my examples that the rule of 8, I was like, okay, but still a really good episode. And what I liked about this episode was that we needed Yuu and Sayaka to kind of have a little bit more of a one-on-one dialogue with one another to kind of see where each other are at. And to not only do that, but also to get to know each other better. Because I think that as we talk about when they're at that burger place that we're going to go through the name again, they both have some pretty big misconceptions of how each other are. And I really appreciate how realistic the show is for portraying that conversation, because, you know, it's not just like, I thought you were this way, but you're totally different. They're very tongue-in-cheek about it. And the dialogue kind of flows really naturally with this series, which is really nice, because a lot of these concepts could easily be very cliche in a series like this, but the creator finds a way for them to be very natural. The dialogue flows really well. It doesn't feel stilted. It definitely reads like a bunch of high school girls talking to one another, which I like a lot. And the monologues are really well done in this too. But let's talk about this opening scene. Oh my gosh. So again, Sayaka's outfits. Girl's got the drip. She's got the fashion going. But she's waiting on Nanami. As soon as she was sitting there like messing with her hair, like just tweaking the little ends of it, I was definitely feeling like, oh, you're waiting on Nanami. Because that's the very tropish thing for girls to do, like just to stroke their hair when they're waiting on somebody they're interested in. Which I can't just say it's girls. Guys do it too, aka see Given for more info. But it says, I'm arriving on the train, arriving at 12:13. I'm waiting by the gate. Okay. All right. So she's like, I got here a little too early. And then, speak of the devil, it's the girl that she was in the relationship with when they were in middle school. This girl, definitely just, I know girls like this in the area where I'm from. It's just a lot of ignorance and a lot of arrogance in one little ball, right? And it just, I'm so flabbergasted. One, I definitely didn't feel like it was a bad thing for her to like come up to Sayaka and have a conversation with her, because that's fine. It's like, you want to mend fences, you want to like build a bridge, you want to like bury the hatchet. Sure. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's even fine. Like if Sayaka is comfortable with that and she's like, you know what, let's just be friends, and it was what it was, and that's all there was to it. And that's really all this girl had to do, was just say, oh, it was great seeing you and all this. But then she takes it a step further, and Sayaka, wasn't asking her to do that. She's like, oh yeah, your house is close to the station. She's like, I'm so glad to see you. And she could have just stopped there. She could have said, oh, I'm glad to see you. Hope everything's going great in high school. But because of her own insecurity, because this girl has her own insecurities, and she's, trying to save face with herself, then she can't just let it go, right? Because there's something there. And she's like, I wanted to apologize when you entered high school, but then you suddenly transferred away. And this girl, she has to have, and maybe she doesn't. That's where the ignorance comes in. Maybe she doesn't realize why Sayaka transferred away. Maybe that's not dawned on her. Maybe she's in a state of denial. Maybe she gets it, and that's why she's apologizing, because she's like, oh, well, I know why you left, because of how we ended things. And so, but her saying, wanting to apologize, Sayaka's not brought it up. So, and Sayaka doesn't seem bothered by her. So, I mean, if Sayaka had walked away and, had dissed her and just been like, not talking to you, and she's like, well, I need to apologize to you, then fine. But Sayaka wasn't bringing it up. She just felt guilty, and she wanted to like clear her own conscience, And Sayaka looks very uncomfortable. She's like, hey, we didn't have to go this route. We didn't have to do that. Like, you really don't have to. Like, let's just, bridge over troubled waters. Let's go. And then she's like, oh, I'm sorry, Sayaka-chan. And it's like, okay, you want to feel better about yourself? I guess, because Sayaka's like, what are you apologizing for? That's Sayaka's thing. She's like, why are you apologizing to me? You broke up with me. And Sayaka knows, we talked about last episode, that she, told her that it was just a phase. But Sayaka's like, if it was just a phase, we've already, mended the fences. We've already been through this. Why are you taking the time to apologize again? And that is when she says, well, you were just an ordinary girl, but then I pressured you to go out with me, and now. So she's almost said, like just the arrogance of that statement. She's like, oh, well, you were heterosexual, but because I asked you out, it made you homosexual, or it made you have those thoughts that you wouldn't normally have had. As if it's like such an insult to Sayaka, because it's basically saying like, well, you were easily manipulated by my manipulation. And it's like, no, she really liked you. She wouldn't have gone out with you if she didn't feel that way. Like, what are you saying? And she's like, mean what? And she's like, well, if you still find yourself attracted to other girls, then it must be because of what I did. And that is just straight up ignorance. That is just some straight up bullshit. Because it's like, no, people are attracted to people because they're born that way. It's not, nope. I hate to tell you this, girl. But That's like my best friend in high school. All, he had a really hard time coming out to his parents, especially his dad. And his, I when he was off living somewhere else, there was an event and his dad was there and I was there, and he's like I and it was one of those things where he was kind of like, he'd had a few drinks and he's like sat beside, he's like, I really thought that my son would end up with you. And I was like, no, I could have told you when he was 5 he wasn't going to end up with me. I was like, yeah, I could have told you when he was in middle school he wasn't going to end up with me. And his dad was like, well, I don't know if I did anything. It's like, no, you didn't do anything. No one did. He was born that way, and it always was going to be that way. That's all there is to it. No amount of anything was going to change that. So there's nothing you can do. And it's just ignorance. People think that it's a choice, and it's really not. You may hide it, and you may choose to be closeted, and you may choose to not openly admit it to others, but this girl that randomly asked her out didn't convert her from being hetero to homosexual. No, she just was validating a feeling that Sayaka already had. And for her to say it must have been because of what I did, Sayaka's like, nope. And then she's like, but if you've gone back to being an ordinary girl, then I guess there's nothing for me to worry about. That line, I guess there's nothing for me to worry about. I'm like, oh. And I'm proud of Sayaka, because that's such a hurtful line, being like, well, but if you've like quit with that whole homosexual thing, I guess you're okay now and it's fine. But that's literally telling this girl to her face that, oh, well, if you're still gay, sorry, that's on me. But if you're back to being normal, then we're all good. But if you're still gay and it's not my fault, then I've got a problem with it. Like, that's literally what she's saying. And she's just veiling it with all of this. Like, she's trying to make Sayaka feel guilt and trying to make her feel shame and trying to make her feel inferior to this girl. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And so I'm really proud of Sayaka for standing up. And I love her eyebrows twitching where she's like, bitch, no. I love her standing up straighter and standing up for herself, being like, bitch, no. And her being like, don't concern yourself. She's like, really? She's like, I find it strange I even fell for you in the first place. And at first the girl's like, oh, well, I see. And she's like, but I am grateful to you. Because she's like, I can see what it's like to be someone like you. And she's like, if I hadn't met you and had this experience, it wouldn't have shaped me into the person that I am now. I was like, I love that the one girl does not get it, what a backhanded compliment that is, where she's like, I wasn't even into you to begin with. She's like, I don't even know why I dated you, because you're not my type at all. I was like, oh girl, you don't realize what an insult that is. And that's when Nanami shows up in her adorable jumper. And then she runs over. I like that she just leaves her. She runs over to Nanami. She just is like, bye, bitch, and leaves like, how dare you try to insult me. And then she runs over and she's like, oh, sorry to keep you. And she's like, oh, is that your friend? And then she grabbing Nanami's arm and she's like, well then, bye. I love that her grabbing Nanami's arm like, bitch, I am a lesbian, deal, and you are nothing to me. Good job, Sayaka. Way to go, girl. That's such arrogance to be like she was trying to take credit for it or something. Psh, screw you. Like, I'm proud of Sayaka. And I feel like Nanami's like, was that a friend of yours? And she's like, no, it's fine. And she's like, well, why you grab my arm? And I like Sayaka's like, oh, I got caught up in the moment and I reacted without thinking. And she's like, that's very weird for you. And I like that she grabs Sayaka's hand and she's like, I'm giving you payback. I like that. I think that's funny. As they go to the hydrangeas and she's like, which one do you like? And hydrangeas are symbolisms of gratitude, right? And gratefulness. And they can be symbolizing love. So I like that. I like that Nanami kind of seems to get the gist of what was going on, but she just kind of like indulges Sayaka for the moment, being like, no, it's fine. It's all good. It was really, really cute. I liked it a lot. And then we have the OP. So good on them. Good on them. So we've got, of course, the sports festival coming up. I think of Sasaki and Miyano. I think of Ace of the Diamond. I think of Run with the Wind. There's like all of this. The relay coming up. And so they're training for the relay. And of course, the episode is that Sayaka and Yuu, their handoff isn't working. They're not connecting. Imagine that. And Suguru and Maki are like, oh, well, come on, ladies, you got to get it together so that we can win the relay, even though I'm sure that they won't win. But this means a lot to Nanami. Nanami's competitive and she wants to do well. And so Yuu and Sayaka have to kind of get to know each other better this episode. So they get all of the plans ready for the relay and all this. I like that Suguru asks Yuu if she gets along with Sayaka, and Yuu's like, sure, why wouldn't we? I feel like Yuu's very easy to get along with. She doesn't really make enemies. She's just kind of like goes with the flow so much with it. But of course, I like that Suguru thinks he's being insightful and observant when Maki's really the observant, insightful one. But Suguru likes to think that he is. We'll let Suguru have those thoughts. So they're getting everything ready together. And honestly, meeting up there at 7:30 to get everything cleaned up, that's going to make for a long day. That's going to make for a very, very long day. That's the problem, right? Because, anytime you think of a sports festival, if you have to participate and help with setup, that's the worst. Because it's one thing to be in charge of setup and cleanup. That's enough. But to also have to be in charge of actually participating, that's a whole other level. That's a whole other layer. Luckily, there are several of them on the student council, so that's good. The one thing that was bugging me about this meeting, and this is like one of my biggest meeting pet peeves, is these two girls that are like, well, it seems like we're going to wrap up this meeting earlier than we had planned. And she's like, oh yeah, it's all thanks to our awesome president. Anytime someone is at a meeting and they're at the front of the room talking and they are spreading pertinent information that you all need to know about, whenever there's like two people in the back talking, I just want to turn around and be like, can you shut up and listen? Like, that is like one of my biggest pet peeves. It happens so often in professional settings, even as an adult. Like when I was in high school, I thought, these people are being rude. But you know what? We're all 17-year-olds. Makes sense. It happens a lot when I'm an adult, and I'll be in a meeting like trying to pay attention, trying to take notes, and there's people in the background just chatting away, and I'm like, why are you here? Step outside the room. If you aren't going to listen to what the information is being given, you're distracting. It's such a pet peeve of mine. Like the inner teacher in me just like crawls out and I'm like, shut up, sit down and be quiet. So, that would just, Yuu looks back at them, but that would just annoy the snot out of me. I'd be like, shut up. So yeah, that's when Yuu says, make sure all your tasks are done by 8:15. So you got 45 minutes to get all this business done and together before everything starts. So Yuu is like, man, everybody's just banking on Nanami being in charge and on top of things. And they say parents and families are going to arrive at 8 a.m. So make sure everybody is in place so that we can welcome them. And so Yuu says that pretty much everybody except her and Sayaka are probably convinced that Nanami is this pillar of perfection. But I'm glad Yuu isn't delusional and she understands that Sayaka probably can see what she can see as well. Especially because Sayaka's always by her side. And she's like, I know we've gone over this already, and then they finish up the meeting. I don't know what the one coach wanted to talk to her about. He sounded like a teacher, like a track coach. I'm not sure what he wanted to talk with her about. I'm assuming it's nothing because it's not brought up again. So maybe it was just an excuse so that Yuu and Sayaka would be able to walk together. Probably, because Suguru and Maki, they like just head off and leave the two of them. And then that leaves the two of them to talk. So that's probably what it was. So Sayaka really is not doing much for her own sake. She's doing a lot of it because Nanami wants to do it. And she wants to be there to support Nanami. Sayaka's pretty indecisive and doesn't really have any passion towards it. Her passion is mainly just making sure Nanami gets what she wants. And that is one thing that I like about Yuu. I like that Yuu stands up for her convictions. And she stands up for what she believes in. She's going along with this whole play because it does mean a lot to Nanami. And she's decided that I'm going to pick my battles. This isn't one of the battles I'm going to pick. Sayaka, to me, though, when it comes to Nanami, does not seem like somebody that would stand up for herself. She would do whatever Nanami wants because she doesn't want to jeopardize the fact that she could be Nanami's right-hand lady. Whereas you, I think if push came to shove, in the end, Yu's bold enough and Yu is assured of herself enough that she'd be like, no, this is what I want to do, whether it was what Nanami wanted or not. So I have a feeling that's going to lead to some conflict because I feel like Sayaka will just nod her head and go along with it. But if something comes up, Yu's going to be like, hey, we need to change some things. And we may have some conflict with how flexible Nanami and Yu are with each other's decisions. We'll have to see. But I will give props to Yu. Yu sees the writing on the wall. She sees that the two of them aren't connecting like they need to for the relay. So we need to do some team bonding. And what better way to team bond than to go get fast food? Food is what brings us all together and we bond over it. So of course, I like that we have the two diverging paths. So you have you wanting to go this way to get food and you have Nanami potentially going the other way to go home. I think visually it's really good symbolism. So then they go to, it looks like, so the arches, the McDonald's arches, it looks like somebody flipping off the camera. If I'm being honest, there's like 3 arches. It looks like somebody just giving us the bird. And it says Yud McDonald's. It's the same font. It's the same type of structure. You know what it is, but it's got 2 apostrophes. It is done so gibberish that you won't be able to sue them for copyright, but it's using the same damn colors. That is hilarious. And so then they go in and have I like that each of them get a drink and she gets the apple pie and you gets the French fries, which I'm curious why she got the apple pie when she seems to like sweet, salty things more than sweet things in the first place, but there's no telling. There's no telling why she did it. I like this conversation between the two of them because you basically is like, you don't seem as bougie as you did before when I first met you. And I like that Sayaka's like, bougie? Me? I'm like, well, judging by your house that you has not seen yet, girl, you bougie. So I like that you gets confirmation that Sayaka's not as bougie as she thought. And Sayaka admits that you is not as timid and meek as she thought. Because, man, back in episode 3, how far you has come, right? But I like that. I like that Sayaka kind of in her head goes, well, I appreciate people that are blunt and just say what they want. Which is kind of what Nanami does. So it makes sense, right? You just does it in a different way, which is fun. But yeah, I like that they both kind of compromise. They realize that they both want what is best for Nanami. And they realize that in order to accomplish that, they need to get along. They need to work together if Nanami's going to be happy. Because regardless of how they feel about the actual relay, it's what matters is that Nanami wants them to be competitive. She wants them to do their best. And so that kind of inspires the both of them to do so. And I like that Sayaka's like, I don't think we're going to talk her out of that play. She's stubborn. She's going to do whatever she wants, whether we're supporting it or not. So if we don't want her to crash and burn, the only thing we can do is support. And that's when Yu's like, so you like Nanami, don't you? And she's like, well, yes, she's my closest friend. And Yu's like, oh, that's not what I meant. I mean, like her. And Sayaka reacts, she's like, I just went through this hell yesterday with this other bitch. The thing about it is, I think Sayaka, she gets a little bit defensive there because I think she's afraid, like, what of it? But she kind of deflects away from that question and says, well, do you like Toko too? Which is a fair question because Sayaka's like, so what if I do? And I don't think you would judge her. I think Yu's just curious. And if I were you, I would want to know if Sayaka really feels for Nanami as well, because I'd want to be on the same page about all of this. And when she asks, she's like, well, do you like Toko too? And Yu's like, oh, well, I mean, as a senpai, she's pretty great, I think. I don't want to get too into details. And Sayaka's just like, I hate you. Sayaka's like, of course you'd say that. Of course you'd dodge the question. But she's like, I'm no better. So she's like, fine. Naturally, she's a friend to me and a senpai to you. And they both dodge the question because both of them know in their heads at this point that if they come out and say, I love you to Nanami's going to push them both away. And neither of them want to do that. So they kind of have a camaraderie in a weird way of of not wanting to admit their attraction to Nanami. So every time we have a BL and a GL, we got to have a stoplight, right? Got to have that damn stoplight. And so Yuu is like, when all this is over and she's done what she wanted to do, do you think she's going to drop the act she puts on? I was surprised that Yuu admitted that Nanami puts on an act. I was surprised, but she trusts Sayaka enough to kind of know that she feels the same way. I was surprised she admitted this. I didn't think she would. And I thought that maybe Nanami would have or Sayaka would have a bigger reaction to it about Nanami, but she doesn't. She's like, do you think she'll drop the act that she always puts on if this play gets pulled off? And the answer, she's like, will she finally just be herself? And I agree with Sayaka where she says, I don't think that's what Toko wants. No, I don't think so either. And the thing that's kind of frustrating for me with Yuu is that I don't think Yuu realizes how long this has gone on and how much it's part of Nanami now. And she just assumes that, oh, she's just putting on this act while, from this year starting now and then throughout the play. But no, this has been a long work in progress for Nanami to get to this point. And I agree with Sayaka, just because they put on the stage show, she ain't going to suddenly be herself. She's going to keep this up till she graduates at least. And they both sit there. Yeah, what does it say? You Donalds? It's ridiculous. And she's like, if that day comes, they both think of that. Will I... when that day comes, Sayaka says, when she lets down her walls, can I tell her how I feel? Well, we know what's going to happen if she tells her how she feels, but she's wondering that. And then Yuu is like, what will happen to me? So yeah, they both have these two different curiosities, these two questions they're asking each other. Sayaka's like, if she was able to put her walls down and once the play's over, can I confess to her? Because I think there's a part of Sayaka that thinks that Yuu doesn't love her. And I don't blame Sayaka if she asked Nanami out, because Yuu has been adamant up until now that she just thinks Nanami's a friend. She's just her senpai. So Sayaka's like, well, you didn't say you wanted to date her, so what's stopping me? So I don't blame Sayaka for wanting to ask her out. And then Yuu is kind of like, well, when all this is said and done, what's going to happen to me? Is she going to move on to somebody else? Or am I just going to be, she's like, am I just forever going to be her friend her friend with benefits? Is that always going to be our thing? Or am I going to get something out of it? Like, I feel like Yuu and Sayaka both have these expectations that they eventually want to get with Nanami. And I don't know whose or if both of theirs are going to be met. I don't know. And that's the whole thing, was what color of hydrangeas do you like? Well, there's 3 different colors, so they could all have picked different colors, right? I like we have intersection with the 2 roads intersecting and both of them. And then we have reined in, which I thought reined in was going to be a lot sadder and more somber than it was, because usually rain indicates like sadness is going to happen in the episode, but that's not what we got at all. So Yuu kind of suggests that she's on to the idea that Nanami doesn't want her to fall in love with her. So Yuu has this idea, and she's like, okay. So in this part of the episode, Yuu kind of doesn't want to contact Nanami to come pick her up, because she's like, well, I don't want to, further the allegations that I'm trying to get with her. So I don't want to lead her on. So I'll try to find a different way. But the irony of it is she also is kind of developing feelings for Nanami. And so she also doesn't want to mess something up. So, which is the telltale sign that you like somebody, when you try to find ways to make everything perfect. That's kind of the situation. So I like that Maki was going to give her a walk home under the umbrella, but then Suguru takes him up on that. Now, do I ship Maki and Suguru? No, I think Suguru likes ladies, and I think Maki doesn't want to have anything to do with any of them. But maybe Maki's gay. I don't know. But I feel like Suguru was just taking advantage of the situation, because that's how he be. But anyway, so she was going to walk home with Akari, but then she observes that Akari is looking out for his friend, her friend, Mr. Basketball Man. And Yu's like, go on. You go get with Basketball Man. I'll be fine. Which was, what a good friend. What a good friend. Like, read between the lines. Let him go. Good job, Yu. Good job, Yu, helping out Akari. And obviously, I do think the basketball guy is into Akari because he turned down the other guy. But then when she asked, he was like, well, sure, I'll walk home with you. He's waiting until his sports anime series is over. And then he can be with her, right? I also like how her bag, it looks like it's a clock with little hands on it, like she's just biding her time. I'm rooting for Akari and this guy that looks like Atsumu, Mia's cousin. So I can totally relate to you and her just hanging around the school trying to figure out something to do. I really like that. My dad worked as a custodian at the school that I went to, so I would oftentimes wait after school with him until he was done cleaning up, and then we'd go home. And so I very much spent a lot of my days roaming around the school by myself, and there'd be people playing basketball after school for practice, or there'd be people like with like drama club and stuff getting ready for things. And so you could just kind of walk around and see what everybody's doing. So I definitely could relate to you trying to like bide her time to wait out the rain to see if it'll get better, and then no. And poor her, the umbrella that was on loan, I thought, oh, what a great moment, but of course it's broken. So she thinks about contacting Nanami, but she doesn't want to bother her. So then she calls her sister, and her future brother-in-law answers the phone. I feel like both of them, they have to know that her and Nanami are possibly a thing. They have to. But of course, Ray understands how Yu is. Like, oh, you forgot your umbrella again. Typical. But I like Ray saying that she wants Yu to find someone that, you know, she has a hard time with commitment. So she just wants her to find somebody that's going to understand her. I think that's why it's going to be such a big deal when Yu admits that she does like Nanami and wants to be in a relationship with her, because I feel like they're setting up the angst. They're setting up the angst because Yu has a very hard time making a commitment. She's going to make a commitment to Nanami, and Nanami's going to be like, I don't want to. And it's going to be like, no, don't you dare. So we'll just see where that goes. We'll just see where that goes, shall we? Anyway, so she hesitates, and that's when Yu doesn't have to worry anymore because Nanami shows up. And she says that she thinks back to when her sister used to walk her home from school on that same road because she's used to someone forgetting an umbrella in the past. I loved them walking home with the umbrella. I thought it was so cute how they were sharing the umbrella and then they were trying to like fight it and get it away from each other, and they end up both holding it together. I thought that was adorable. Not beating the allegations of this being like heaven official's blessing with you have Nanami with the big red umbrella. Looks literally like Hua Chong. But I like this. I thought it was really sweet having them walk together. And what's interesting is, you know, Nanami is used to, you know, just being able to dote on Yu and being able to like hold the umbrella for her and dote on her, and Yu's like, oh, okay. But for Yu to turn it around and want to do something for Nanami, I feel like maybe for Nanami that's like red flag number one. She's like, oh, you're wanting to dote on me? This doesn't seem like you. And Yu's just like, well, I'm just returning the favor. Like, you were being super nice. And they both talk about them being younger sisters, which is a really cool comparison between the two of them. But in that moment where they get to the snack little awning and the vending machine, and she's like, the biggest problem is if you were to catch cold, senpai. That's a very like flirty, caring gesture. She's like, I don't want you to catch cold. And I thought for a second that when she had the towel above her head, like drying her hair off, that she'd like lean in and kiss her. But for you to make that move and to take that initiative would have been huge. And I think that would have made Nanami go, well, no, we said we weren't going to catch feelings. And I'm like, girl, you thought you weren't going to catch feelings? Girl, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. And I got really concerned whenever Yu was trying to help her, because I'm like, that's very sweet. And that's nice of you to do that. But as she was drying her hair, she's like, oh, well, you know, you're pampering me more than others. And she's like, well, please stand still. And Nani was getting all blushy about it. And I thought for a second Nanami would like that and she'd be okay about it. And then she says, okay, one more time. And that's when I feel like Nanami starts to go, wait a minute. Because she gets very blushy about it. And she's like, well, you're so good at pampering others, which is why I worry I might be taking advantage of that. And I'm like, well, you kind of are. Because you want her to like let you love on her without giving anything back. You are taking advantage of her. And when you say that you won't be with her if she likes you back, I'm like, girl, that's a hard line to toe. And of course, Yuu is like, well, I'm not really. She's like, well, I can't help but think you might be tired of all this dealing with me. Yuu doesn't say that. Nanami does, and you're just forcing yourself through it. I'm scared you'll end up hating me because of it. And she's like, are you sure you're okay? And Yuu is like, well, you pamper me a lot more by taking time to ask questions like this. She's like, maybe this is just a trait that younger sisters are born with. But she's like, I don't consider what I do pampering you. Actually, you saved me when you showed up today. She's like, I'm just returning the favor. And I think everything was fine up to that point because she's like, well, I'm just, returning the favor. She's like, it's just what younger sisters do. Everything's. And up until that point, I don't think she said anything that threw off any alarms for Nanami because there was nothing to it. She was just being nice. But then she said, it made me really happy. And she blushes. And Nanami's like, oh, really happy? Like you liked it? Meaning that she's like, what does she mean by that? Well, that means, and then she sees the sparkles in Yuu's eyes. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. Because Nanami in that moment, I thought she has her fist clenched. I thought in that moment Nanami was going to get mad at you, being like, oh, you don't love me, do you? Because that's not what I want. And I'm so afraid of that because I don't think that's fair for Nanami to do that. I don't think it's fair. Because she right now is taking advantage of you. She thinks that she can have her cake and eat it too. And she's like, I can pamper you and love on you, but I'm not expecting anything back. So just let me do this and just stand there. And it was fine while she thought that Yuu was okay with it like that. But the moment that Yuu starts to be like, well, I'm really happy being this way with you. Like it's something that any normal person would be like, oh, well, good. We're developing a relationship. Nope. Nanami's like, that's not what I want. She's like, that means we're going to fight and get in an argument. And then there's going to be feelings hurt. And her pessimistic side starts coming out. And it's like, girl, there is nothing wrong with someone showing devotion to you. Like, you do it all the time to her. Why can't she do it back? And then Yuu says, oh, well, it's nothing. And we don't get to see her face in that moment in the rain. But I was like, Nanami, if you're going to be dramatic and make this a moment, it's not going to go over well. But then Yuu says, it's just a lot of people left me by the wayside on their way home today. And I'm like, you covers that up pretty good. Because I'm like, you left a lot of people. Like, there was everyone there offered, like Akari offered to take her home. And she said, no, you go with your guy. Maki offered to take her home and she's like, no, I'll sit here and wait. Hiro offered to drive by and pick her up and she's like, no, I'll be fine. Like, she says a lot of people left her by the wayside on their way home. Like, she was covering her base and we don't get to see her reaction either. But I'm like, girl, you intentionally told those people no. Don't act like that was like the reason. She's like, so when you showed up, it was a big relief, senpai. And I don't like Nanami frowning like that. She's like, that's all. I didn't mean anything weird by it. And I was like, girl, don't be mad. Like, this is not the thing to be mad on. This is not the hill to die on. And Yuu almost seems like she's apologizing. Like, oh, I didn't mean anything weird by it. I'm sorry I'm showing you affection. Please don't assume that we can't be friends anymore. Girl. And Nanami's like, oh, well, good. And she's like, well, that sounds more like the Yuu I know. That side of Nanami is so frustrating. Because it's so weird. She doesn't want you to fall in love with her because then she will expect Nanami to be a certain way. and she feels she can't be herself around you if that happens. Like, kind of like Sayaka's in love with a version of Nanami, and she's like, well, it'll never work out because I can't reveal my true self to Sayaka or it won't work. So she's like, as long as you doesn't change and stays platonically invested in me, then everything will be fine. But what's happening is Nanami is boxing in you, where only one side of you, one particular angle of you, is all she wants to see because she loves her. And she's saying that she doesn't want you to do the same thing to her. But I'm like, you're kind of a hypocrite. If you do that, you can't be like, oh, this is the version of you that I like. People change and are super complex. And it's not fair for you to say to you, it's not fair for Nanami to say to you, I only want this side of you or we can't be together at all. But then when Yu's like, but I want to show you this other side, and she's like, no. Like, that's a little frustrating. And I feel like Nanami's going to screw this up. I feel like Nanami's going to mess this up, if I'm being honest. I feel like the catalyst of all this is that Nanami is going to make the mistake and shove Yu away because she thinks Yu's falling in love with her. And I feel like maybe Sayaka might be the one to like smack her and be like, what are you doing? This girl loves you and she's great for you. Why are you doing this? Or maybe she won't. Who knows? Maybe she'll be like, I'll stroke your hair and say everything's all right. Who knows? Maybe Maki will be the one to be like, what are you doing? This girl loves you. What's wrong with you? I don't know. I just feel like in that moment where she pigeonholes you and says, this is the version of you I'm okay with, and the other version, no, I'm not. That's just setting her up for failure. And I'm like, Nanami, do you not see the writing on the wall? And Yu's like, okay. And she's like, we get to be lovey-dovey under this umbrella. And she's like, lovey-dovey? She's like, well, that's pretty embarrassing when you put it that way. And so they stay there, and then she's like, what color is your favorite? And Yu is just like, she's like, I want some of her warmth. And the sad part is that she denies herself it. Like, she wants to hold her hand, but she's like, oh no, if I don't tiptoe around Nanami and her feelings, then I'm going to mess this up. And she says, I'm fine for now, just like this. But that's exactly what Sayaka said. And I feel like it's going to come to a head. And both of those women are going to say, okay, now we're not fine. Like, it's not what the relationship they all have with right now, as it is not sustainable at all. So it's like something's going to give. Either Sayaka's going to have to come to terms with the fact that Nanami's not going to be with her probably, or maybe she will be, who knows. Yu's going to have to come to terms with how she feels about Nanami and be open with her about that. And Nanami's got to make some decisions. Nanami cannot just have her cake and eat it too the whole series. She's going to have to figure out, am I going to be okay with this? Am I going to turn her away? What am I going to do? And I don't know if I'm ready for those answers. But she says, I'm fine like this for now. And then asks her what color she likes. But of course she falls asleep. She's like, good grief. So then we get the after credit scene where they manage to pass the baton. It all works out. Maki and Suguru looks like they're surprised as all get out. They're like, holy shit, it actually worked. And they're like, we could totally pull this off tomorrow. We could definitely get this. And then the two of them, I like that both of them, I like that Sayaka's like, well, of course we would. You made us do this over and over again. And she's like, good, you two. And both of them are like, man, she can be real pain sometimes. Absolutely. So it's such a weird love triangle. It is like Sayaka wants to confess, but Nanami doesn't like her that way. Nanami likes Yu the way that she is, but Yu wants to confess. And so it's just like, ugh. And Maki's just sitting there like, ha ha ha. And Suguru has like a question mark above his head about it all. Ugh. It was a good episode, but I still think it's gonna blow up at some point, whether it's next week or the week after. Something's gonna give, and I'm not ready for that angst. They've been slowly spreading out the crumbs, planting the seeds, watering it with the rain of this episode. It's all gonna come to a head, I feel, and I'm like, Anyway. So, we'll see. We'll see. But regardless, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'm back next week with more of Bloom Into You. Bye.